Hey, Divyaansh and Utkarsh, welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Hey, thanks for inviting us, Roshan.
Yeah, looking forward to a fabulous conversation. So I must tell you how I discovered Introbot. Sushil Doshi, who's the co-founder of Mixpanel and Mighty, had tweeted basically, "What did you ship?" Right, and Divyansh had perhaps the coolest reply to that, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Right, so he said, "Shipped and saved 3,000 plus lives in 1 week through Introbot AI, the AI community manager, among the COVID crisis in India." In real time, it collects leads to oxygen, hospital beds, plasma, gets the leads verified and shares the verified leads within the community. Hashtag saving a million lives, right? And I was thinking, yeah, good luck trying to beat that, right? So, uh, I thought that is a good enough place for us to start. You guys have done some fantastic work. Could you take us through, how this journey happened? Maybe Divyansh, you can start, and, Utkarsh, you can add as well.
Sure. So I guess where the journey starts is very like 5 years ago, but I'll make this short. Related to the COVID thing first, right? So this was just when the second wave had started to like really climb up, and we at Introbot anyway had this WhatsApp bot that is making introductions within the founder ecosystem in India. So between founders and investors based on very specific needs. And when the wave started to climb up and all the communities we were in, suddenly everyone was talking about just these leads to all these resources that were not available at all in all these cities. And that's when we thought that maybe we could change the bots flow to just address this for just a week. Because there's no point in making networking happen. No one is looking to raise funds during this week when everyone's family members are dying. And that's when we just started out with this quick experiment where we connected, regular founders with healthcare founders. Like if you're looking for anything, we have like these 60 healthcare founders in the pool of 1,200 founders that we have. And we'll just connect you with them. And that alone actually worked really well. And through that experiment, so many people came to us and said that, hey, why don't you solve this larger problem at hand itself, which is the skew and demand and supply. And not just the skew and demand and supply, but the skew and the information about the supply of these vendors. Then Utkarsh, basically, like when we discussed that, hey, could we make this pivot for this short period of time and have this massive impact potentially? We discussed whether it made sense for the business at all. Like fine, we are doing this, definitely we should do this for the impact, but does it make sense for the product? And that's when we went back to our roots and actually asked what are we really trying to do? So Introbot is the AI community manager, and it's essentially a middleman in any community context that understands what people need and what other people can give. And with that context, this actually works perfectly because this is again like the similar situation where people are limited by their networks, but they have something to offer and someone else is looking for the same thing. And that's what Introbot is able to do.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. So Utkarsh, what is the kind of impact that you've seen in recent times, let's say with COVID itself?
Yeah, we are grateful to be able to serve more than 500,000 COVID-related requests just in a matter of 7 days. So when we started out, our whole goal was if we can get to serving 100 requests in 2 days, we would go ahead with the product. If not, we'll do something else. And in the first 2 days, we saw almost 20,000 requests coming into our system, and we started propagating it across the different communities we were plugged in. So thankfully, we were in the right time and space, and I would say lucky enough to be plugged into a lot of the VC portfolios, business ecosystems, founder groups, the top university communities as well. And once we started dissipating about our bot, and people started quickly sharing it across the family and friends group, and it started getting viral. And we got the sense of responsibility that we have to jump quickly and build and distribute so that we are able to save more and more lives. And I'm happy to share on the team's behalf that aside from the 500,000 requests that we have served, we have also supported more than 30,000 COVID affected families with relevant information. And while doing so, we have saved thousands of lives, hopefully, on the ground. And we have been doing this customer support calls as well, where people have told us that we are so glad Introbot was there. and somebody in my family got saved. I think that really inspires us to do what we're doing. And on top of that, we are grateful to be supported by this another initiative called COVID Citizens, and through which we have built a huge database of more than 30,000 medical supply leads over just a span of 7 days. So in fact, we are a collaborative effort first, and combining a lot of resources across the Indian startup ecosystem. So all of us are coming together to build this massive platform where we can help every family in India who is in need. So I think that's the kind of impact we're having on ground, and we keep sharing more on more along those lines over Twitter and LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And one of the things that has really struck me is how private enterprise and startups have come together over the last few months to really fight COVID. Right. So, Divyaansh, could you just give us a peek under the hood, like what is really happening? Because when you say verifying data and information and stuff, I mean, this is not a trivial thing, right? So how does that work?
Right. So one of the insights that we gathered as we started working on this problem was that the bottleneck is verification of data itself. Like there are leads across social media, and the process of verification. So several things were being tried. There was several teams of volunteers calling up these suppliers, asking them whether they're authentic or not. And then there were IVRs being set up where automatically auto calls happen, and then an automated voice talks to these suppliers and all of that. We realized that all of these approaches were flawed. Firstly, because it was limited by the number of volunteers that we had, and secondly, why were these volunteers throttling this already throttled channel of calls to these suppliers, right? Why are more people calling them just to ask them whether they exist? So the insight here, and I think the reason why this went viral, is that we push that responsibility to the end citizen itself. That if they're anyway going to call up the person, if they're anyway looking for an oxygen cylinder, they're anyway going to call up the person, they should tell us whether they were able to reach the person or not. So they are verifying the lead on our behalf, and that is how we've been able to do these 650,000 verifications in a matter of 1.5 weeks now. That was, I think, the innovation on this front. And so the verification itself, like the specifics of the process, is that you call up, let's say I'm looking for an oxygen cylinder, I call up the person, and then right after that, I have to respond with saying whether it's helpful, out of stock, unresponsive, invalid, or if their suggestion is to remove, like my suggestion is that you should remove the supplier because of some problem. And that's how we've been able to really curate this data set at scale.
Right. So it's a completely decentralized sort of a mechanism to verify all of this data, right? That's pretty cool. Let's step away from all of the COVID work that you guys are doing and talk about the original use case for Introbot. Utkarsh, when you guys started Introbot, what was the original intention?
So we wanted to build a central intelligence that connects different societies and communities across mankind. And the way we see it is that there are different silos which are floating around. And if you talk about the whole ecosystem that runs virtually, so we have different kinds of WhatsApp groups, Discord groups, Slack groups, and so on. And there is certain intelligence that exists in those groups. And the people who have different kind of needs and desires and so on. And what we wanted to build is basically an AI-powered assistant that could intelligently connect across these different groups and power these communities. So we fundamentally believe in the power of communities, and to unlock that at a scale is something we were looking at. And that was our long-term vision. And we realized, as Divyaansh mentioned, that, hey, this is not just the founder community or the business community that needs us right now. It's the entire Bharat community. And we quickly moved from serving that need to this different one. And we realized that at the core of mankind, we are all just community coming together, and we can actually help this entire community together. And Divyaansh, maybe you can add a few lines here.
Right. So absolutely. I mean, it's more of like, can we create a system that can sit in any community of any size, And size is something that is very important to understand, because all of these communities, all of these well-functioning communities are limited by a max size. Like if you have like 10,000 people in a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group, it stops to function, right? That max size is the limitation of, how what kind of people can network with each other and all of that. And these are the silos, these are the boundaries that something like Introbots and intelligence can remove. Like a personality that knows a million people, as opposed to human beings who can know 150 people at max. And that's where it can know every person in across, let's say, 200 companies or 2,000 companies or across the human community. And that's what I mean. Taking COVID's example again, I mean, there is this person who's absolutely disconnected with this other person in Delhi. One person is in Chhatarpur, the other person is in Ghaziabad. They don't know each other at all, but they're somehow through Introbot sharing a lead with this guy is sharing a lead with the other person. So this is the beauty of putting this central intelligence that can know so many people at the same time.
Right.
And if you can imagine this going on at scale, then everybody is finding the other person who they would have wanted to connect with, and now they're actually connected. So how beautiful the lives can become. It would be way more efficient, it will be way more productive, and way more fulfilling as well. So that's the longer vision that we have at Introbot.
No, that's a great point that you bring up. Like it's almost like an on-demand meta community of communities, right? I mean, I can belong to one or more of these communities without actually being part of that community and being connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it basically questions the meaning of community itself. And we have done everything from Google searching the word community and really understanding what each definition means to reading up several articles about it. And right. I mean, the word community is just people sharing a common attribute, right? That's what a community is. So at the end of the day, the community you're participating in it just translates to what attributes you're interested in or you have. Right. And that's like you are a human being, you are an Indian, you are interested in startups, you are an ex-founder, you're working in a startup that is in SaaS, and you're a professional in marketing. These 6 attributes, these are 6 major communities across the world that you're already participating in. So and then specifically, let's say everyone who has ever interacted with you on this podcast, that also is a community. So all of these attributes is what we are collecting actually by launching Introbot in all of these communities.
Right. So, you started this a couple of years back, if I remember correctly. And then, what is the traction that you've seen leading up to right now when, it's primarily being used for COVID and so on?
Sure. So it was actually launched a year ago. So actually exactly a year ago. And it was an experiment at that point of time. We launched it in one community and was mostly like, just can we make this one community efficient? So for 3 months, we were, I think, working with only 4 communities. And then even the WhatsApp bot, for example, like we've always been building like a chat bot, but the transition to a WhatsApp bot was also an experiment. We knew that WhatsApp is going to be great in India. But just learning how to build it. Like, for example, even right now, there's so many people who say that Introbot is the only bot that they talk to, right? So that process translated to from that one community to today, 120 communities that are using Introbot. And from those 50 founders who were using it 9 months ago, today we have 1,200 using on almost a daily basis. So that's, and obviously with COVID, just in the last 2 weeks, we have scaled up to 500,000 people using it for this specific purpose. But how we like once COVID is done, I think that we would either go back to founders or because we've been able to like connect SMBs essentially with this consumer pool of India. We might also explore perhaps like along with founder and investor networking, which is going great anyway. We could also add this vertical of just SMBs across the country, registering and saying that what can they provide. Right now it's oxygen in Delhi, but they could also be saying something like, pizza in Dwarka, right? And someone else who's looking for pizza in Dwarka could get connected. But that's just like giving you a broad overview of how this could be. And it's essentially a conversational Google, right? Like you Google something you say pizza in Dwarka on Google. But here, if you say pizza in Dwarka, we would ask you a bunch of other questions to understand what kind of pizza and where in Dwarka, right? So that kind of an insight done through a conversation as opposed to an interface, like a UI interface on the web, is, I think, the product innovation in this front, other than the intelligence behind it.
Right. No, that's a pretty
And
remarkable
also,
thing. Yeah, go ahead, Utkarsh.
Just to add to what Divyaansh has mentioned, I think chatbots inherently weren't that useful for a lot of use cases previously. And they were just representing a certain amount of data either on website, or they were representing a backend of certain sorts. But what we have done is we have actually communicated that the chatbots can be super smart and intelligent as well, and can help in a lot of ways. So we have seen a lot of people coming and asking, hey, I mean, we never knew something like this existed or could be built. Can you help us build something like this? So through this use case, the country in itself is opening up to a plethora of different applications of chatbot itself. And we believe that Introbot can power a lot of these use cases. Hopefully, this pandemic is over soon, and we are hoping for the day when we have to shut down the COVID chatbot in a matter of weeks. But once that is done, I think we want to continue to serve people in India and even outside, and have global use cases where we can really deliver that level of intelligence instantly on your mobile phone. And people will trust us inherently because it's through a medium that they are very habituated to seeing.
Right. Yeah, so that's a pretty remarkable thing, right? I think the way we search and query has not changed over 20 years, right? I mean, we still do the same thing that we were doing then, although, I mean, the efficiency and the efficacy of that has obviously grown through leaps and bounds, right? But I really think there's something there, and there's a lot of scope for innovation there. One final question on community, and then we can move on to some product nuances and stuff like that. You guys have gotten to observe some well-functioning communities up close, right? So what are some key 2 or 3 things that work well in a good community, right? For someone who's listening, who wants to maybe like form a WhatsApp group or a Slack channel or whatever it is, what should they keep in mind in order to run a good, tight-knit community that's actually useful and insightful?
I should take that for sure.
Yeah, let me take that. So I saw a tweet, okay, 2 days back. The title community manager wasn't there a year back, and now companies are actually hiring, especially startups are hiring for a community manager. And even VCs, who are inherently playing on a back foot, have a proactive role in community building. That is how the whole situation has changed. In fact, community is becoming so fundamental to a lot of companies that instead of building products first, companies are in fact looking to build a community first and then build a product around it. That's how communities are actually building up. And a lot of companies are building on top of community itself. So for example, WhatsApp has become such a beautiful platform for bringing and building these communities. And the fundamental difference between an audience and a community is that when you have an audience, then you are interacting from one to many angle. But when you have a community, then even the different endpoints are interacting with each other. And that's how the similar set of ethos, fundamentals, voices, narratives get built out. And that's what builds a community. And once the communities are in place, I think that's a superpower. People feel that they belong to a group, and that's a beautiful thing. And once we have the fundamental building blocks of communities, can actually make them work together, because at the end we realize that we are all the same. The communities at core are all the same, and they wish for the same things. And that's where the beauty of community comes out. And there's a lot of business side to it, but I think that's the fundamental human side of communities that I talked about. And maybe Divyaansh, you can add a few bits here.
Right. So also to address, what Rohan was asking. So essentially, I think where communities struggle right now, and where people could do a better job at maintaining better communities is simply allowing for the community to interact. As Utkarsh was saying, that it's not an audience. Like, you're not creating an audience. You're creating a system for your community to talk to each other. So even there are so many SaaS companies that are creating communities of their clients, right? So now the clients should be able to talk to each other. It should not be like it's just a channel for the SaaS company to upsell their offerings to their audience, right? It's not an audience, it's a community. And that actually consolidates, the entire perception of the brand itself, because your community is mostly talking about good things because they're already your clients, right? So it's just consolidating, and you want trust to build up. And with any size of community, there's also like network effects build trust. Like the more people join in, the more the general average trust increases, and that also is exponential. It compounds. So yeah, I mean, it's just about like how can you get the community to interact a little better, and specifics around that, of course, could be making sure that people are meeting each other, everyone is heard, the different. First of all, it's not like a very random community, it's around a specific topic. There certainly should be a lot of like you should remove people actively from the community. It's like when you're building a product, you should know what your target audience is. If someone is not your target audience, they're going to mislead you. You should not listen to their feedback. So similarly with the community, you should know who this community is for. And that's how you ensure that the experience of the people who are going to benefit the most is maximized, as opposed to trying to make everyone happy. So these are some points off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that Taleb has this silver rule, or via negativa as he calls it, right? So which is I may not know what you like, but let's agree on what we don't like, right? And a lot of the times, I think, as you mentioned, knowing who you don't want in a certain community is a lot more important, I feel. And also having that net balance of give versus get being skewed more towards give than get is an important attribute as well, right? So I first heard about conversational AI about 3-4 years ago, and I discovered Drift and Intercom and things to that effect. Today, it's become widely prevalent. You have it for solving service issues, to being a sort of a quasi salesperson even, right? So I wonder if you guys can take us through some of the nuances of building a conversational AI application. And Utkarsh, you touched upon this earlier. How is it different from a regular chatbot that a lot of people are used to?
Yeah. So there are a couple of key differences between what we are building and what conversational AI applications that you see on the market. Most of them are around servicing, as you mentioned. They're around customer support, or they're just trying to show what's there in the database. Versus we look at conversational AI as only a mechanism of delivering a certain information. The fundamental core that we look at is the central intelligence that we are building that plugs into different communities. So that's a very different line of thinking. But when it comes to implementation, there are a variety of ways you can actually go about it. And there are many companies in India that are trying a bunch of things around it. But from the algorithm side of things, I would let Divyaansh pitch in here and talk a bit more about how he sees it.
Right. So in fact, even on the product side, right? So the difference generally between how a general assistant would work, even Google Assistant or Siri for that matter, right? They are your they would answer with the context of you, right? You're their everything. There is no one around. It's just you, and essentially all the information in the world. Right. And similarly, like if you go to a website, you see a chatbot, it's their database is the information that website provides. We are fundamentally different because we are building a social chatbot, like a chatbot that is conscious of the fact that it is talking to you, but it is also talking to 1,000 other people, or let's say 500,000 other people. Right. It is conscious of that fact. And because of that, it can tell you that, hey, I just spoke with the other person who told me that they can help you, right? And not just that I know this and therefore this is the information. So this social building, like introducing a chatbot in a social construct, is something that has not happened before to this extent. So that's I think a very different approach to chatbots. It's not just like a Google form. It's not a type form. It's not just you filling up information and you getting insights. It is something that you're interacting with that is also interacting in real time with several other people. And then the database behind it is like a social network database, right? It's understanding what you're looking for, understanding who you are, and it's making a social graph, it's making an information graph, it's making your persona. And based on that, it understands which person, which node in the social graph is the closest link to you, not in terms of, not necessarily in terms of the linkages, actual linkages between the nodes, but in terms of the interests or your objectives. So that's how the recommendation engine works. And it's again, like and even the vision for that matter, it is to actually, like, I mean, we think of this as a personality that we're going to just interact with like a regular person on a regular basis, right? We as in everyone, like, just, I mean, we mostly interact with each other on WhatsApp anyway, right? And like, it's just another person, another number, WhatsApp or whatever chat channel, whatever country is used to. It's a number on your chat list, and you say that, hey, I mean, let's say Introbot says that, hey, how was your day? Could I help you with something? And I say that, hey, I mean, I was looking for the XYZ, and could you help me with that? And that personality says that, sure, I'll try it out. So I mean, something like that, creating an experience which is very human, and not just another Google form, is where we're taking this product to.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the simplicity part of this is the key, right? When you come across websites and apps, the problem is that they are fundamentally very complex because they're trying to do a lot of things, versus what we have realized as serial entrepreneurs, and we have built communities and companies before, is that simplicity is what makes the product very hard. How to get things so simple that people can use it. And that was one of the reasons we are able to serve so many COVID affected families in such a less time, is because it was fundamentally very simple and accessible compared to a lot of other resources out there. And we are always keeping that in mind when taking a consumer first and user first approach, even to conversational AI.
Right. So the other decision that you've made is to base your business on the WhatsApp platform, right? I wonder if you can talk us through, what were the pros and cons? How did you balance that decision out? And how has that been like for you guys?
Right. So it is, again, coming from our experience. Both of us are serial entrepreneurs. Both of us have made the mistakes of, trying to build a far flung out product on all the platforms there are, iOS, Android, web, and then pivoting on top of that, and making, iterating on top of that becomes a huge hassle. So we decided right off the bat that we have to pick one platform. We're not going to like build for 20 different platforms, because 20% of our audience is saying that we want it on Telegram also, and we want it on iMessage also. Sorry, I said the word audience, I meant community. That's my bad. But yeah, so it's so 80% is WhatsApp, which is all we need, right? We don't need, we will build it for the 20% for sure. But right now, with the 80%, we need to iterate week on week. We need to change the flow. We have discarded the entire thing that we've built and started from scratch 4 times already in the last 6 months, right? And other than that, obviously, like, why 80% WhatsApp is that it has penetrated, like WeChat has penetrated in China. It has penetrated India in that way. And we cannot go with WhatsApp to any other country that we are aware of. We have like people from Europe and US and Australia as well using Introbot, but then it's not nowhere close to the kind of activity that we're seeing in India. So it is definitely a testing ground. I mean, while delivering the value as much as we can, making people happy as much as we can, but it is the place where we test out, we build out a robust product that can then like just expand to make it omni channel over a few months and then launch to the world as well. So that's how we are approaching it. But WhatsApp is all we need for India for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Dunzo proved that pretty well, right? I mean, they ran their entire operations on WhatsApp for quite a while, and then pivoted to building the app, and which is pretty remarkable, the way they were able to seamlessly shift between mediums and so on. The other thing is, yeah, Misho as well. Correct. Yeah. So the thing also is that WhatsApp has the UX sorted out, right? I mean, in that sense, I mean, people are familiar with how to use it per se, and you can focus on your core value proposition instead, right?
I would say that WhatsApp has the worst UX in terms of like obviously UX because everyone is on it and all of that. Uh, so it's very convenient. You don't have to log in. You just have to like be on the same platform you are. But UX in terms of like having any kind of a button or a multi-select or all of that is hard to implement, and that's why for example, in the regular founder flow, we have like really complicated questions where we are trying to understand, right? In the fewest number of questions, things like, what kind of industry are you targeting? You have these 10 options. Now you have to say 1, 3, and 5, right? So these user input patterns also is something that we've evolved on week. And we've learned so much about, what works, what doesn't through these experiments that we could and it's actually like when people use the chatbot, they're like, hey, I mean, this looks simple enough, I can build this in like a week. But then the amount of iterations that this has gone, because what they come up with a week later is something that we built a year ago, and that's absolutely not the experience that anyone wants to use. So that's the kind of insight, I guess, that is required to build a chatbot that works seamlessly.
I want to make 2 points here.
Yeah.
So first on WhatsApp and its UX. So I would like to thank the WhatsApp team, and I mean, they have been super helpful. In fact, the Facebook India team as well, to help us navigate this whole process, because we do see a lot of volume, and we have seen a lot of untrusted information and a bit of false news going around. So I mean, what they have built is super awesome, but then they have been very helpful with the support as well. And they have actually, so we are in touch with the WhatsApp in our WhatsApp, and they are constantly supporting us with whatever we need. In fact, they quickly gave us a verified check mark so that we can ensure that people can trust the information that we are dissipating. I think that was a big deal for us, and we want to thank them.
Yeah, shout out to Rohant and Anisha.
Yep. For sure. And yeah, the second point was that a lot of people have been trying to build a bot, and specifically in the COVID use case. But the challenge here is that this is not an accidental product. It's not that we suddenly got up 5 days back and we decided, hey, kuch karte hain COVID ke liye, to aaj hum log bot banayenge. It did not happen like that. It was a very well thought of initiative, and we just happened to be lucky that we had the right skills and the right platform to be able to move fast. So in fact, that's a big component that helped us serve and reach out to so many people and impacted families.
Yeah, that is something that I find interesting in the sense that, arguably you were building for this for a year, right? I mean, for this exact moment, and it's just the right product at the right moment, I suppose, right? So, and with WhatsApp as well, I think we're just scratching the surface, right? Because even now the number one use case is messaging, right? Whereas, I mean, you can think of like 3, 4, maybe 10 other use cases, as we've seen with WeChat in China and so on, right? So, I know we covered this like very briefly in the beginning, right? But paint us a picture, COVID is done with, right? Hopefully, and everyone's out and about, and life returns to as normal as it can be, right? Fingers crossed, right? Where does Introbot go from here? And also, have you guys, seen some VC interest and so on, given, everything that's happened now?
Let me start. Yeah, go ahead, Utkarsh.
Okay, so there are 2 different perspectives here. I will let Divyaansh talk on the second one, but the first one, I think that COVID is not a monolithic war that we are fighting. We are fundamentally going through different phases of it, and thankfully for some of us and our families, we are already past it. Either we are vaccinated or we have recovered. So the need kind of changes as we go through these different phases. For some people, we are providing the supplier information in terms of like medical resources, but for others, we are supplying counseling services through our partner channels. But then there are different applications that will kind of come in as we go through the different phases of COVID. And also, as we see the waves kind of go down, there's a chance it might come up. God forbid doesn't, but it might come up. So we just want to make sure we can become the India's most trusted helpline when it comes to finding medical resources in terms of the COVID context, and help different sets of people, different communities in different ways, as much as we possibly can. And on the long-term side of things, we will get back to focusing on the founder and business ecosystem. And probably, Divyaansh, you can add the second point here.
Sure. To pick up on the first point, in fact, also, so I like to quickly shout out some names as well. COVID citizens for sure, because so Jasminder Singh Gulati, who's the founder of NoFlow, it's acquired by Reliance. He's the one who's kind of leading the efforts on COVID citizens front, and his vision, we believe, is absolutely amazing, where he is creating this one-stop solution, full stack solution for everything COVID. Starting from Introbot obviously being the chat interface, but there's also like a volunteer-driven or audio solution, audio system called Fireside, through which anyone can call in and just look for get suppliers information and also get counseling through a verified psychologist and things like that. So like a full stack solution, because this problem is not going away. The problem is very deeply entrenched in our society and economy. It's not just this 1 month, unfortunately, as unfortunate as this is. But yeah, so partnering with COVID citizens has been really great for us. We've learned a lot through the team. Great people there: Avinash Raghava, Chaitanya from Wakefit, and Ashwath from Fireside. So it's been we've opened up our eyes as to how much impact they can have, not just within this month, but over the next year or so. So that's COVID, but definitely Introbot, because now we would, and coming to VC because that's linked. For sure, we'd already been getting interest from VCs, considering that we were targeting them. But we are in fact in deep talks with a VC that I can't name. But yeah, I mean, and with COVID, definitely we'll be planning to, as much as I can say, basically we're in talks. But the main thing here is not to raise money; it is to deploy that money in the right way. So we plan to recruit people to explore these verticals, to have COVID running the way it is running, to explore SMBs as well, to keep running the founder and investor networking. So that would just allow us to do a lot more for various verticals that we've thought of, and that's the plan. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we are also seeing a lot of help from different non-profit organizations who have been looking forward to donate to us and help with the initiative. In fact, all this at scale does need some money. So in fact, from the donation side of things and contribution side of things, we are open to partnering with such organizations. So through your channel and platform, we would like to reach out to people who would want to partner with us in terms of human capital, tech capital, or also on the fund side of things.
Awesome.
Because this is totally a non-profit initiative from our end that we're doing for COVID.
Yeah, no, more power to you guys. I mean, you guys are doing some fantastic work. Final couple of questions before we close. You guys mentioned, right? I mean, you've built products and companies before. What's it like being a founder in 2021 in India? It's a very broad question. I don't know what will come up, but yeah, sure. Take a stab at it. Divyaansh, you want to go? Maybe Utkarsh can add.
I'll actually answer for Utkarsh. He did not imagine that he'll be a founder in 2021 in India. So we actually met in the Bay Area a couple of years ago, and we were planning to be there. But I think Utkarsh was visiting back, as in was at his home, visiting back home. He'd come back from WEF, and that's when COVID happened. And I was also basically wrapping up my previous company, so I was just in the middle of things. And yeah, I was at home actually at that time when COVID happened. So it just happened that we were in India, and then with WhatsApp being like a major channel, we decided to stick to India. I mean, WhatsApp is actually the reason why we are not doing this for founders in some other country. And yeah, so that now it makes sense to just do this in India, at least for the next year or so. And so, like, coming to your question, I guess it is so, like, it's because we are targeting founders, because we're talking to, you know, tens, dozens of founders every week. New So, and through the bot also, like, the bot is essentially every interaction with the bot is a conversation. So we are actually having hundreds and thousands of conversations every week, technically. And through that, we've just realized just how much potential there is. And India is going to become this entrepreneurial hotspot very soon, if it's not that already. Because tier 2, tier 3 cities, you know, and even in tier 1 cities, so many people, so many initiatives. It's insane how much potential is going to get unlocked in the next just couple of years or so. And to be able to accelerate that process through Introbot, to make that community exponentially more efficient, is definitely something that we're very excited about.
Right. Okay, final question to you guys. I mean, this has been an interesting period. It's been such a crazy ride, right? And something that none of us will forget for life. You know, what are some things that you will remember from this period, and any lessons that you know you want to sign off on? Maybe Utkarsh, you can take this one.
The two key things. First of all, I think this is a literal war that we're going through. Almost all of us. Sorry, there's a scooter here.
Founder in India.
I was just thinking.
Glad we are not doing this live, because power cut, scooter, birds, and kids. Anyway.
I'm sure Roshan will leave this in though.
I think it should be there. It'll be a nice quirk to it. Yeah. Go on, Utkarsh.
Sure. So first of all, I would say it's a very, very unfortunate phase we are going through. And I'm really sorry for the entire humankind to have gone through this. I mean, it feels like the World War III happening right in front of your eyes. And almost all of us have been directly or indirectly impacted. I mean, in the first wave, we would have heard these things. Acha, iske chacha ko kuch ho gaya. That was the thing we heard. Now it's like we getting a call, and my uncle getting admitted to ICU like 2 days back. And in fact, Introbot and COVID citizens, I mean, these are the resources that were handy, and I could actually use these for my uncle and for the extended families to get him ambulance and oxygen and hospital bed. So this is what is happening right in front of our eyes, and we are all getting affected. So that's terrible. I hope we can all come together as a community and join hands, collaborate, and get out of it. So looking forward to the day when we are out and we can actually go out and have the freedom that we used to have about 2 years back, and meet each other, hug each other, and tell stories in real time, not be stuck in our rooms and virtual hangouts. So that's one. Second is, I think we are in the middle of a tunnel and the light is out there. We are grateful as a team to be having the skills to help people out. A lot of people have been trying to help but may not have the right resources. So thankfully we're lucky. We are lucky to have the partners, and we are lucky to have the right teams and the knowledge bases that have helped us reach where we are. So really looking forward to serving the country and the people as much as we can through this crisis, and hope we all come out very strong together as a community out of this tunnel. So I would like to thank everybody who are partnering. Thanks to your audience, and thanks to you, Roshan, for helping us do the outreach and share the word. I hope we can reach more people and serve more people. So would be glad if you can share our bots link and other COVID resources through your channel and help us with this mission. So
absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much, Utkarsh and Divyaansh, for coming on the podcast. And I'm really happy that I discovered that tweet, right? And it led to this podcast as well. And continue doing the fantastic work you guys are doing. Every conversation that I have with a founder, I get so much more optimistic for India, and you guys are doing fantastic stuff. So all the best for all of your future endeavors.
Thanks so much, Roshan.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with everything that you're doing as well. Definitely, one thing that we, think about communities and why we think communities are so amazing is that every single contribution has such great butterfly effects. So just like whatever we're doing, every single human being is just so just is impacting every other single human being in massive ways. So thank you for all the work that you're doing and everyone is doing here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Roshan.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Be safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.